Whether you think you missed the entire growing season or the summer harvest is still giving and you want to maximize the amount of produce out of your garden, here are 8 different seeds you must now sow in August so that you can win on fall gardening. For most of you, there'll still be enough time to get this sweet crop in the garden and get a full harvest out of it. Because carrots is best direct sown, so I'm not planting it in this bed. I'm going to be planting it in the bed back over there. Carrot is said to be one of the hardest seeds to germinate successfully, but I don't see how people struggle with this. I would sow carrots by scattering the seeds. Unlike planting other veggies, you don't cover the seeds with soil because they're so tiny. They don't have enough energy to pop through the soil. This year, I think I'm going to be planting carrots in rows instead. I'm trying my best here to space the carrot seeds out evenly, but I will thin them out later once they germinate where I see they're still crowded. I'm also going to try covering the carrots that I'm sowing here with a scrap of board to prevent water from evaporating so easily. As the carrots continue to grow, make sure you keep the soil moist regularly, especially while they're still small. Even though the chilly soil temperatures will help the taproot on the ground get nice and sweeter, you have to get them started early. You want to make sure you're sowing your carrots in early to mid-August so that the plant has enough time to develop leaf growth, because leaf growth and the carrot growth overall will slow down once the temperatures begin to cool down. You can also sow quicker producing varieties of carrots if you miss the first window of opportunity in the beginning of August. And so carrot was the first seed you must plant in August. Kale is probably one of the most cold-hardy veggie that you can't miss to grow. In fact, in some areas where there's milder winters or where there's a little snow coverage, kale has been able to make it through the entire winter and continue on growing in the spring. In fact, people have said that once kale been through a few frosts, it actually gets sweeter because the starches in the kale leaves turn to sugars. So if you want an abundant harvest of kale, you gotta get them started now. So in this bed here, I'm planting 1 row of kale. I'm gonna make a trench that's just about maybe a 1/4 inch deep. And right here I'm planting the dazzling blue kale. Some of the other varieties that I like is the purple scarlet kale and the dinosaur kale. So once these seeds pop up, they'll be perfect and ready for me to transplant anywhere in the garden. Kale takes about 60 to 70 days before you can begin harvesting. If you missed the early sowing, you could also plant some shorter producing varieties that takes only 50 days, like the red Russian kale. We had a few pets that like kale. So for fall gardening, it's a good idea that you cover your kale with a row cover to prevent any pests from getting to them and have perfect, good kale. When you're growing kale, you want to plant it in some rich, well-amended soil, especially with cow manure. Cow manure has nitrogen along with other nutrients, and nitrogen is what's going to trigger the leaf growth, which will create faster growing plants that have big, healthy leaves. So the third crop that you can't miss sowing is spinach. Spinach is fairly easy to grow. Because we are sowing spinach while it's still summer and the temperatures are extremely hot outside, spinach seeds wouldn't have a good germination. But there's a trick to deal with that issue. Now today, the timing for planting spinach will help the germination. Don't plant spinach if where you live is above 25 degrees Celsius still. If you want to know the variety that I'm planting the giant noble variety. Spinach takes about 45 days until you can harvest, and if you're harvesting for baby spinach, it's even sooner. So the trick to help increase the germination rate when planting spinach is to pop your seeds in a refrigerator for a couple days in a damp piece of paper towel. This will simulate the seeds as if they've been through winter and will help increase the germination rate. So once your seeds have been in the refrigerator for 4 to 5 days, you can take them out and they'll be ready to plant. In fact, I already have some that germinated. The sowing depth for spinach is around 1/4 to 1/2 inch. For radishes like mine, if you're showing a daikon radish, you're gonna want to plant it in a 1/2 inch trench, and you want to get them sowed now because they take about 50 days before you can begin to harvest. With radishes, I'm sowing them about a 1/2 inch deep, and you want to keep the soil moist for at least 3 to 4 days to make sure they could all germinate. And do your best to space them out because radishes don't like being disturbed once they germinate. If you don't really like radish that much, daikon radish is a radish that you must try growing because Daikon radish, once steamed and with a little soy sauce, tastes excellent. I make sure to sow enough so that I'll have enough for us to enjoy. Smaller varieties of radish, if you decide to plant them, will typically take around 25 to 30 days before they're ready to harvest. These smaller varieties are usually more potent and spicy. Because these varieties were both, it's better to sow them more in the later end of August rather than the beginning. And the next crop that you must plant in August is Asian greens. There are some great varieties. There's the milk bok choy, there's the Shanghai bok choy, and there's also the tatsoi. If you're planting bok choy, you're going to want to plant the heat-tolerant varieties like the Shanghai bok choy. Because the Asian greens will decide to bolt if it gets really hot. Bok choys will take about 50 to 60 days till harvest. Shorter varieties may take only 45 to 50 days until they're ready for harvest, like the Shanghai bok. If you want to grow less heat-tolerant varieties like the milk bok choy, then you'll have to wait until the end of August or use a shade cloth to give them shade. But bok choy, there's so many pests that are out there to attack them, flea beetles, slugs, and more. So make sure you cover with insect netting, as the insect netting will prevent the most of pests from getting to the bok choys. Doing this will reduce the risk of getting a problem before it happens so that you'll have perfect bok choy when it's time for harvest. The next crop that I'll be sowing is lettuce. There's some really good varieties like the Marvel 4 Season and leaf lettuces mix are fantastic. With lettuces, you want to sow them a 1/4 inch or not even deep at all. They really don't need to be sown deep because these seeds are very tiny, just like carrots. Next, you want to cover these seeds with a light sprinkle of soil because lettuce seeds, when they're given some light, will actually germinate better. In the following 2 to 4 days, the lettuce will have germinated. Once the young lettuce have grown to be about 2 to 4 weeks, you can transplant them in other beds in your garden. Lettuce will best be planted about 1 per square foot or spaced, if you're planting in rows, 8 to 12 inches apart in both directions. So the things that you could grow if you have over 90 to 100 frost-free growing days is peas and cabbage. Most variety of cabbages will take 90 to 100 growing days to get a full mature head of cabbage. But there is also faster, quicker variety of cabbages that you could get a head from. As for peas, they take about 60 to 70 growing days before you can begin to start harvesting from them. So you'll want 80 to 90 frost-free growing days left if you want to sow peas in August. There's also Swiss chard, beets, and turnips. Swiss chard will take about 3 months before they are mature and they're really big. But you can begin harvesting Swiss chard at the 2-month mark. We have a little Swiss chard in our garden still, so we don't have to sow more. Now, beets and turnips take about 45 to 55 days until they're ready for harvest. But these crops we don't like too much, so we don't grow them that often in our garden. Well, these are the 7 crops you must now sow in August if you want a fall harvest. And while it's still summer, make sure to check out this video over here where I'll discuss the 5 mistakes that you may be making that your cucumber plants will hate you for and how to fix them so that you can get the maximum fruits out of your plant and get huge harvests. Until next time, continue to learn and grow. Goodbye!